Hello, hello again, family. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 26 and talk about a movie, right? You know, when you sit down and you watch a movie, there's drama, there's tension, there's character formation, character evolution, there's things going on, and this is a tense scene that we're about to see. In 1 Samuel chapter 26, David has the opportunity to kill Saul one more time. This is a second time that David has the opportunity to kill King Saul and basically get rid of this problem, this constant pursuit that Saul is trying to basically capture David to kill him. And the question that I want to ask you, to ask ourselves today is, what do you do when you have your enemies cornered and you have them right where you want them, and they are in a vulnerable position? They're in such a vulnerable position that you could just, you could tear them to pieces with, maybe not necessarily physically, but with your words. Or maybe you could expose them in such a way that it would just totally destroy them. Or maybe you could say something about them that is true and kind of bring to light something in their life. And so what do you do when you are in a situation when you have this fight and now you have the upper hand? Or let's talk about maybe not even our enemies. Let's talk about someone in our own house. Question, how do you fight? Because and what I mean by that is that we all fight, right? We have arguments, we have discussions, we have disagreements. And so how do you fight with your kids? How do you fight with your spouse? How do you fight with your friends? Because there is a way to fight. Now, this might sound weird, but there is a way to fight in a healthy way. But there's also a way to fight that is super unhealthy. And so what I want us to look at is 1 Samuel chapter 26. I want you to go through it. There's going to be there is 25 verses in 1 Samuel chapter 26. And basically, here's the scenario. Saul is once again on pursuit, and his men say, hey, listen, David's over here. Let's go get him. We can come down over this hill. We'll capture him. We'll get him. We'll destroy him. And as he's there, David knows that Saul's on his way, so he stays out in the wilderness, and he doesn't stay in camp. And so as they're coming to pursue David, Saul, of course, him and his army, they set up camp, and then they go to sleep at night. Well, while they go to sleep, David basically calls to his men. He says, hey, who wants to come with me to go to this other side, down to this camp? And so one of his men says, hey, Abner says, the commander, Abner, who was the commander of the army, it says that Saul was lying within the encampment while the army was encamped around them. That's verse 5. Verse 6, then David said to Amalek, the Hittite, and to Joab's brother, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, who will go down with me to the camp to Saul? And Abishai said, I will go down with you. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there lay Saul sleeping within the encampment, with his spear stuck in the ground at his head, and Abner and the army lay around him. Then Abishai said to David, God has given your enemy into your hand this day. Wow. Now please, let me pin him to the earth with one stroke of the spear, and I will not strike him twice. But David said to Abishai, do not destroy him. For who can put out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? And David said, as the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die, or he will go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should put out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But take now the spear that is at his head and the jar of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it or knew it, nor did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them. All right. So remember what I asked you the question. What do you do when your enemy or your the person you're living with, your spouse, your kids, a coworker, a friend, a relative. What do you do when they're in a vulnerable position and you can pounce and you can take them out. You can cut them to pieces with your words, and you can cut them to pieces, right? And you have the upper hand. How do you fight? Well, I want us to step into King David's direction, which is not easy to do. And I want to invite you, and I want to invite myself to fight the way that David chose to fight that day. That day, he had every opportunity to end Saul's life. And had he ended Saul's life, David would have been at peace, at least from the pursuit of trying to be killed, right? He would have felt way better. He wouldn't have to have been on the run, and then he would have been made king. And David had every right. Can you imagine? Like, you've been on the run for how many years now? You've had to do things that you never would have done. You're sleeping out in the wilderness. You're not living the best life. And you're thinking all to yourself, like, I'm the one who's anointed to be king. I should be in that position. I should be now king, over Israel. He could have thought all of those things. He could have gotten upset. He could have said, you know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm done with this guy. And not only that, but his friend and one of the people in the army, Abishai, said, hey, look, the Lord has delivered your enemy into your hands. This is from God. And you and I have to be careful. Because how many of us, when we talk to our friends, our closest friends, we talk about what's going on. We're talking about the drama in our lives. We're talking about the fight that we just had with our significant other. We're talking about, certain things going on. And what do our friends do sometimes? They feed that, right? They fuel the fire. They're like, yeah, you know what? You should tell them, you should tell them off, or you should get back at them, or you should, fill in the blank. But I'm thankful that David recognizes, hey, listen, I'm not going to kill this man. God has set him up to be king over Israel. His time will come. It is not up to me to take him out. Time will tell, and time will reveal itself, and God will remove him from being king, and I will step into that. And I'm just going to trust that. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to, while this person, my enemy, is vulnerable, and I have every right now to look good and to end this thing. David doesn't do that. And so, I want you to take a big, deep breath for yourself and ask yourself, how do you fight? How do you fight when you're, once again, when the person that you're fighting with is in their most vulnerable state? When they're in a vulnerable position and you have the upper hand, you have the power. Now, the dynamic has shifted. The control has shifted. The game has shifted, and now it seems like it's in your favor. And now you have every opportunity to cut that person up or cut them off or whatever. Once again, not physically, but by the way that we treat them, with our words, with our energy, the way we, however we handle a specific situation. What do you do? And of course, I say all that to say, we are invited not to fight fire with fire, but to fight, right, fire with water. You and I are invited in our life to be like Jesus. And fast forward, let's go to Jesus. How does Jesus fight when he is being lied on, when they're trying to smear his character, when the Jewish leaders, right, the religious leaders, and also Rome, when they capture him and they have him on trial and they beat him and they mock him and they spit in his face and they pull on his beard and they put a crown of thorns on his head, when they whip him, as they crucify him, all of that. How does Jesus fight? He fights in a non-violent way. He fights in a powerful way because he doesn't allow what's happening to him get a rise out of him. He doesn't allow, no matter how much hate is being spewed his way, no matter how much, just evil is being thrown at him, he doesn't respond to it. He doesn't allow it to come out of him. That, he doesn't mirror what's being shown him. Instead, he chooses the way of love, profound love. Instead, he chooses the way of peace, powerful peace. Instead, Jesus chooses the way of humility. And this humility is able to just diffuse situations. And he trusts that his Father is going to be the one not only to fight his battle, but to resurrect him from the evil that was thrown at him. He trusts that even though all this is happening, this is not the final word. The final word is whatever thus says the Lord. So I want to encourage ourselves, that when you and I find ourselves fighting in our everyday life with people that we love or people that we don't love, when it's coworkers, when it is family members, when it is whoever it might be, I want to encourage you to tap into, once again, fighting non-violently, right? Fighting in a healthy way. And here's how you fight the healthy way. You don't rise to that evil. You don't mirror what is being thrown at you. The way you and I fight is we fight fire with water. We fight these accusatory words. We fight it with prayer, right? We fight that, all these things that are being thrown at us, we fight it with love. We fight it with peace. We fight it with humility. We fight it with trusting, having faith, knowing that God is going to fight our battles and that the fight that we're in is not the final word, but that God has the power to resurrect, that God has the power to bring out good out of any situation. As Paul would say, for we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. We know that God has the ability, and so well, because we've seen it all throughout Scripture. Joseph's another one. His brothers sell him into slavery, and then he goes into Potiphar's house. He's accused of trying to get with Potiphar's wife. So on and so on and so on and so on. And he continues to keep his integrity. He continues to stay humble. He continues to trust God's plan. He continues to work hard. He just says, I'm going to do what's right. I know what's being done to me isn't fair, but I'm just going to do what's right. I know I don't deserve this, but I'm just going to respond with kindness. I know that they're coming at me in a certain way that makes every ounce of me wants to come back, but I'm just going to trust God, and I'm going to respond with the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm going to choose love over hate. And so I want to invite myself to meditate on 1 Samuel chapter 26 and see how in the midst of everything that was coming David's way, he chooses not to respond with fire, but he chooses to trust in God and allow God to take matters into his own hands. All right, fam? Well, that's about it. God bless, and we will talk to you soon.